Welcome to another edition of the Paranormal Zone. I'm your co-host, Tom Spitalere. Bob's out on assignment today. We have Melissa, who is a psychic medium and many other extraordinary things, her and her family are, as a special co-host today. The Paranormal Zone, well, welcome, Melissa, first of all, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. The Paranormal Zone is set up in a way so we could listen to everybody's ideas of what is the paranormal, what is Bigfooting, what is UFO, UAPs, I'll always call them UFOs,
I agree.
abductions, and stuff like that. But we listen to everybody because anybody who works or volunteer works in this field, and that's pretty much what it is, it's a hobby, has been, especially if you're doing a long time, you build your own reputation and you build your own way. Now, is your way the right way? Yes, no.
No.
Everybody's way is the right way. That's the way I look at it. Nobody's way is wrong. So I'm open to everybody's ideas. Sometimes I open up my own self by listening to other people's ideas.
Couldn't agree more.
And so that's what this show's all about. Well, Melissa, thanks for coming on and co-hosting today. I do appreciate it.
Anytime.
We're going to talk all over the map today, actually. I want to start off with, we just had an event at Hilldale Cemetery, as I announced last week. Due to the wacky weather that I thought it was pretty nice when I first started going, wow, look at this. No bad weather. Should be a good turnout. What I did not know was the two counties west, one west of us in Haverhill and one north of us, had tornado warnings put up. Of course, the weather missed our area completely until about 9 o'clock when it downpoured out. So in a way, thank God, because we would have gotten soaked out in the cemetery. But yeah, I didn't hear about that one. So what we want to discuss today is, we're going to start off talking about Haunted Hilldale Cemetery. Then we'll go into other cemeteries, but we're also going to talk about proper etiquette when investigating a cemetery. Because you got to remember, these are people's homes of sorts. So let's start off with Hilldale Cemetery. Well, Hilldale Cemetery was formed in 1849, 1850. It became the previous cemetery in New England during the Civil War. And right after the war ended, it became home to many, a final resting place to many who fought in the American Civil War. Men, and even including women. We have at least one female. We have blacks. We have minority soldiers up on the hill. We have a little bit of everything as far as Hilldale's concerned, as far as Civil War soldiers are concerned. It's not an old cemetery, but it's a 20.9 acre cemetery of rolling hills. And through the years, former team members and team members have captured many things in there. I actually saw this one, the lady in white running up and down the main road.
Oh, wow.
A former team member caught a famous picture of a head coming out of the ground. That was a Civil War soldier from Lawrence, Massachusetts, where we are right now, broadcasting at the historic Haunted James R. Ross Memorial Studios in historic downtown Lawrence, which by the end of this show, we have a huge announcement to make, but we'll get to that at the end of the show. So, yes, Mr. White was from Lawrence. He later died in Haverhill. He's buried in Haverhill. And we caught it. One of our former team members actually caught a head coming out of the ground. We actually have that picture on our Facebook page. You can check that out. Another former team member were walking out in the back of the woods and saw a lady in white. I've seen that doing plenty of foot patrols back there. At night, you might find me lurking in the cemetery because it's an inner city cemetery and there's, always a chance of vandalism at night when you got train tracks that go all the way to New Hampshire.
Absolutely.
So sometimes you might see me scouring into the night, walking around. couple years ago, I know what I saw. Some people call them elementals, but I know exactly what I saw. In an area we just cleaned up. It's now been cleaned for a while, but at that time it was just cleaned up. When the board that took over Hilldale Cemetery, led by me originally, now still led by me, but I have a great crew of people: Tammy Dabrowski, Kim Acasio, her son, Tammy's son, and we have a great group of people, a great group of volunteers over there. They do most of the cleanup. I'm over there to try to raise the funds. That's what I try to do, is raise the money needed to keep those lawnmowers and keep things going and deal with stuff that comes up. Anytime you're dealing with this type of stuff, you're always going to end up running into some issues here and there, which is, it is what it is. But they do a great job. Kim, Tammy, and Karen. Almost forgot about poor Karen. Yeah, Karen does a great job too, cleaning up that cemetery every week. But if it wasn't for them, it would be very difficult to do the ghost hunt. So I'm very proud of the work that they do. But everybody works together very importantly as a team on the board of directors. So back to the haunting stuff. So we had a head coming out of the ground. Some people call them elementals. I call them pudgewuckies. I swear that's what I saw near this area that was at that time recently reclaimed from woods. Okay, that place when I took when Hilldale took that over, the original board. There's me and Teresa left from the original board. All the other ones I just mentioned, including Herman Acasio, Kim's husband, are all newer board members. They've been with Hilldale for a while now, but they weren't the original board. So the board now is myself, Tammy, Karen, Herman, and Kim. Their kids every week, their black belt kids are the Casio 2 martial arts. There's a lot of great work cleaning up that place for us. But what I saw was a little creature with pointy ears and red eyes staring at me one night in my car.
No way.
Yeah. And to me, amazing. Some people call them elementals. To me, because I dealt with one on a private case in Amesbury, it looked like a pudgewucky to me.
That's fascinating to me. I have not encountered many elementals in my life. I felt the energy definitely out in the woods and about, and have avoided certain areas or whatnot, but I've never actually seen anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, I was lucky or unlucky, depending on the way you want to look at it. We had done a private case in Amesbury at a issue of a place, and let me tell you, it was real interesting. Set it back. There was a portal opened on the lawn. We set it back and closed the portal.
Oh wow!
But as far as Hilldale's concerned, so that's another thing. We've also done sky watching from there. We've seen a few oddities in the sky. We'll be doing some sky watching this year.
Interesting. Yeah, I can't wait to get out there and
right
with the infrared goggles.
So, as of right, you can't wait to get out there. I can't wait to get back out there. Our next paranormal event will be June 7th at Hilldale Cemetery. It's a Saturday night. What?
At Hilldale.
At Hilldale, yep.
Yep.
So come on out there. There's been shadow figures seen throughout that area by many different people. There's been, a lot of different things seen over there through the years. by many, many different great people that have come on our fundraising investigations. It is a fundraiser, and on this station we can talk about it. When we do public access, it's hard to sell pricing, but it's a small donation. It's $10 per person to come on out there and actually enjoy a night walk, historical talk of the area, so you get to learn all about the history of the cemetery. And then 101% quoting Bob. I say 100%. He says 101. Now I say 110%. Of all the money raised goes directly to the Hilldale Cemetery Association for the rest of the cleanup. There's a lot of cleanup left to do. If you drive by there and you're a regular person, you go, wow, it looks pretty good. What else do they got to do besides maintain it? There's a whole row of trees that need to come down before they come down. Now, you would say that's pretty easy, right? Grab a chainsaw and go to work, right? Should be easy. There's no houses in that area, so it should be easy just to grab a chainsaw and go, right? Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I wish it was that easy. If those tree roots die, there are actually gravestones on the sides of hills. A heavy rainstorm could cause more damage to the cemetery and graves.
Wow.
So before we cut down those big, beautiful trees that are dying, we need to build retaining walls. And that costs money, right? That you need a professional to build with. I can't do that myself. I could go in there with a chainsaw. I've worked plenty of them in my life and dropped some big trees without damaging anything. But once those trees are gone, it's going to cause an erosion problem.
Absolutely.
So, that's one thing. Now, I know, Melissa, you haven't been to Hilldale yet, correct?
I have not. I'm actually very excited to check it out and see what I feel and see if we capture anything.
Now, have you been to other cemeteries?
I've been to plenty of other cemeteries.
So what is one of your favorite cemeteries to go to?
Well, what is that Pine Grove? So I live up in New Hampshire, and we have a lot of family over in Pine Grove, and it's so beautiful to just sit by the pond, and there's some soldiers also buried in there, and we've taken some equipment, just, starting to play around with it a little bit, and got a few hits and a few things said to us, and
That's
so
interesting.
That's probably my favorite local one. But then we have the one from in my childhood. It was called the Green Lady Cemetery. And supposedly, I went there. I was in the back of a car, and I was too scared to look at anything, so I couldn't tell you not one detail of the cemetery because I was so frightened. But supposedly, the Green Lady appears in a mist or as an apparition and has this green glow to her.
That sounds like something I'd want to go check out. What state is this in?
That's in Connecticut.
Might have to take a road trip to Connecticut.
Well, it would take about probably 3 hours, not even to get there on the other side of Bristol.
Oh, that's not that far of a ride.
No.
And there's other stops along the way too, I imagine, that have paranormal activity in there.
There's lots along the way.
So yeah, that'll be interesting. So the Green Lady, huh? Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds.
I can't even remember if it's Terryville or the town next to Terryville. I was so scared, I couldn't even look at anything.
Wow. All right. So have you been to any other cemeteries in this area?
In this area, I grew up across the street from the cemetery, and I used to find my way into this little cemetery they had just for the nuns. I found it very peaceful in there. I used to hang out a lot in there, actually, during middle school until I moved to New Hampshire.
Yeah, no, cemeteries for me, if I'm driving somewhere and I see a cemetery, sometimes I'll forget to put the directional on. So I get horns beeped in, and I get the Massachusetts salute even up in New Hampshire and Vermont because I'll forget to put those directionals on.
You guys do not know what a directional is.
No, because you come up on the cemetery and you're like, wow, got to check this out. Oh, yeah.
I've been peaceful in cemeteries. I've always been at peace. So, there's been cool ones in Florida that we checked out. Key West. That was a really good one.
No, I've actually, I live by this one big mantra, as you'll find out, getting to know me more. I don't leave New England till I'm all done exploring all of New England. Then I'll go play with alligators and crocodiles and skunk apes and.
You're not getting me in the bayou. Not happening.
And some big pretty snakes.
No, thank you.
You don't have to get in the bayou to see gators. They go resting on golf courses in the middle of Florida.
Yes, they do. They go walking down the sidewalks.
Yeah, they don't care. Ooh, 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 ooh. Here comes a gator. So yeah, first I got to finish exploring the greatest states in the country, which is right here in New England: Massachusetts, Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont.
I'd like to do some more exploring in Maine. When we were just up there for April vacation, we were literally not even a mile away from the famous East Wind. And unfortunately, they were closed for the season, so we couldn't really investigate or do anything fun to that effect. But I don't believe they cater to that anyways. They cater more to events and weddings, and I don't think they want to be known as the haunted inn. But
oh, you mean the one in Kennebunkport, the captain's house?
The captain's house is not. It's in St. George in Tennant's Harbor.
Oh, okay. Oh, east. Oh, way up there. Okay, yes.
Oh, well, yeah, we were up pretty far, and
you were almost visiting our northern neighbors, Canada.
Almost. We were pretty far up.
And if
for some reason I didn't think Eastland was in Maine. I thought it was in Michigan.
Right, Eastland, Maine also has a lake monster in it, if memory serves me right, from a talk I did on New England lake monsters and sea monsters. Eastland seems to be ringing a bell to me.
You never know.
So it is interesting what you find out there.
It is, and they had a few old cemeteries too. A lot of there were like just driving all the way up, like family plots, would you call them,
yep.
Jesse? And they were like caged in, like just driving along the road, and there would be like maybe 10 plots and someone's house on the property, and there was a lot of those.
Correct.
We did get to stop in the original Maine State Penitentiary, which was pretty cool.
Oh, cool.
That was pretty cool.
So you've probably been to Maine. That's probably the furthest north, but you probably traveled to Maine a few times, right?
Yes, I have.
All right. So you've been to Kittery, Maine before?
I have.
All right, so we all know Kittery's known for something, right? Oh,
the shopping.
Shopping. Not to me, it isn't. Kittery, Maine has. Kittery, Maine has 152 graveyards in the town of Kittery.
No way.
Yes, way. I have a map for every one of them.
That's an insane amount of graveyards.
I mean, just drive along Route 1. You'll find them all the time. In fact, you went 95 north, correct, when you went to Eastland?
Yeah, but then we came out to Route 1 almost for quite a ways there.
Okay.
It wasn't a highway. You know what I mean? It
right.
was like just a back road.
Now, when you went up I-95, the Maine Turnpike, right?
Yeah.
In southern Maine, you notice the road isn't totally straight?
Yes, it's crooked constantly.
Yeah, do you know why? Near the Kennebec truck stop rest area?
Yeah, we stopped there.
Okay, right before that, you know how the road veers out a little bit?
Oh, there was a cemetery there, wasn't
There's
there?
a cemetery up on the hill. They found that when they were digging the highway out. Because
Oh, no way.
that's why they had to move the highway.
Interesting. I did not know.
Yeah,
that.
there's a Civil War. It's like 3 or 4 graves. It's right on the hill, just south. It's still on the highway, but just south of the rest stop, maybe a quarter of a mile. So.
And it's just like 3 or 4 Civil War.
Yeah. Yeah, and almost every ramp you get off in Maine, if you really look out in the woods, you'll find a graveyard.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're common. They really are common out there.
Yeah, they are.
In fact, a group of us went out to Maine many a times in New Hampshire looking for certain gravestones for a buddy of ours, helping him out with a project, right? Looking for all the Lawrence Civil War soldiers and Methuen Civil War soldiers that, you come back from war, you might fall in love with somebody from another state and you move. Right. Doesn't mean you're going to be buried in the same town you were in. You might be buried somewhere else, up in Maine, for example. So we went up to Wells, Maine, looking for a couple soldiers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we couldn't find this one particular graveyard, so we stopped and I asked the police department. Okay, explain them what we're doing. And this nice young officer came out who's a member of the local historical society, happened to be at the right time.
Oh, how perfect.
So he was telling me that the laws are different in some of the towns. So in most communities, in New England, we're talking about. Now, I know in England, France, Germany, people are listening to us all over the world. Okay, so it is what it is, right? But here in New England, most graveyards are open 15 minutes before dusk and they close 15 minutes before dawn. Okay? Those are the legal times. Some of them like the Lowell Cemetery, I believe they go from 7 in the morning in the summer till 8:30 at night. They're posted. So always check when you go into a graveyard if it's posted. If it isn't, most likely it's dawn to dusk. Okay?
Right.
Dawn to dusk. In Wells, Maine, it's 15 minutes before dawn and 15 minutes before dusk. That's their legal time. Well, that would make sense. It's easier to send patrol cars around to see if, it's still light out. Let's face it.
Right.
So I can understand that. Now, we call them cemeteries, if they're newer, graveyards, or burial grounds. Okay? Wells, Maine calls them open-air museums.
No. Okay.
Yep. And I'm going to explain why. I would call Hilldale open-air museum. I would call any of the cemeteries I used to do my Tom Live shows in. I had a former team member help me with Tom Live, but he took them all down. There's still some you can find over the internet because we had falling out. Sometimes that happens. And he just chucked down my whole Tom Live things. I did that during COVID. Done it after COVID, too. We'll be doing it again this year. That's where I go live on Facebook, and I go to different cemeteries at different haunted locations, and we just do a 15-minute thing. Grab take a psychic, a pendulum, a camera, and we just walk around for 10 or 15 minutes during the daytime, not at night. So we don't have to worry about anything. And we respect the graveyard. If there's a funeral service going on, we'll go find somewhere else to go. We try to find the ones with nobody, quiet areas, right?
Absolutely. Always respect
and so we could always respect the people who are their final homes. Mm-hmm. But I could see why they call them open-air museums, because when you walk through the cemetery where you have a lot of families buried at, you said earlier, correct? I forgot the name of it. you're looking at these gravestones going, wow, he fought in World War One, or he was in
Oh,
World War Two,
absolutely.
or he was Vietnam, Civil War. You go further back, American Revolution. Now, if you go way back to the colonial burial grounds where they would just dig a hole, throw you in, and forget you, right? You start walking, okay? And I'm just going to throw fake dates out there because I don't have anything in front of me, but so I can explain to our listeners across the world and the universe what I mean. So we're walking and we see this family plot, right? In this old burial ground. And it says John Smith died August 3rd, 1659. Carl Smith died August 2nd, 1659, sorry. If you see a lot of people dying in the same week or the same month in the same year, there's only two things for that. One, there was an attack during the French Indian War, if it goes that far back, right? Or two, there could have been an outbreak of a disease. Flu,
Absolutely.
pneumonia,
Smallpox.
smallpox, fever. I mean, you never know. So that's why Wells calls their cemeteries above ground museums, because that whole row of family just explains something, a small part of its town history.
Absolutely.
So that's why they're called open air museums.
I actually like that a lot.
Because even my family, my grandfather, my father, they're gone. Okay? My grandfather's with me all the time. He had a story. He was a mill worker. He was involved with the Bread and Roses. He was a boxer during the Depression era. And he did other things too. That's all history.
There is.
My great-grandfather had the first donut machine in Lawrence to mass-produce donuts.
What machine?
Donut thing. Made donuts.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, not singular donuts like you would make sitting at home. One of those machines that would punch out a whole bunch of them. He had a bakery called Quagliette's Bakery in Lawrence.
Oh, really cool.
So, those are stories that are in these graveyards. Lawrence Graveyard's got the famous actress Thelma Todd. She's buried in Lawrence. She grew up in Lawrence. She was
from the black and white movie?
She ended black and white, and she was one of the first talkies.
Okay.
She was found dead in her car from carbon monoxide poisoning in her garage. Some say she was murdered by the mob, and others say she died from falling asleep in the car after a party. We really don't know what happened to Thelma, but that's the gist of her story.
Interesting.
So there's a graveyard and there's a gravestone in Lawrence that you could talk about. There's been books written on her. The 54th Black Massachusetts Regiment and the 59th. I have somebody from there buried at Hilldale, and the 54th, we got two people buried in Lawrence. That was the famed regiment. What was the name of that movie? Civil War movie that came out. I saw it back in 8th grade. That wasn't that long ago.
Gone with the Wind?
No.
No?
No, it was about Fort Sumter. They all died. A lot of them died at Fort Sumter from the 54th Black.
I would not know the name of that
I forgot the name of that movie, but nonetheless, that regiment was decorated. There's monuments in Boston and all over the United States for them in Washington. So, a decorated regiment is what I'm getting at. And they were local.
Okay.
And we have a couple buried here in Lawrence and one from another black regiment buried in Haverhill, at Hilldale. So, there's stories with all these stones. Any graveyard. There's a graveyard in Salem, New Hampshire. actually, and one in Wyndham, where this is what, the 250th anniversary of America, correct? This year, well, coming up, there was the 250 of Lexington and Concord, and then next year would be the 250 of the passing of the Constitution. There was a guy in Salem buried at the old Salem graveyard that was actually crossing the Delaware with Washington.
Really?
And there's one in Wyndham that crossed the Delaware, Wyndham, New Hampshire.
Interesting.
So you don't really, each graveyard has its own stories to it. And that's what I find interesting about graveyards.
We'll be exploring Cemetery Hill in the graveyard down in Gettysburg at the end of June next month. So hopefully I'll come back with some I don't know, some information, some pictures, some EVPs. That would be great.
That's the place where our freedom first started, at Gettysburg.
Mm-hmm.
Where we became pretty much a unified United States. No more North, no more South. After that war, we were one. So, that's where our struggles to be free. I went there once as a kid. It was quite interesting, I have to admit. So, Melissa, now that we've discussed graveyards to the helm, and one last reminder, June 7th will be at Haunted Hilldale Cemetery.
Yes, it's on my calendar.
And hopefully we have a good night. It's going to start at, doors will open around 8 o'clock. Gates will open. Because we want to go when it's a little darker out. And of course it's June. And then we'll get there. We'll probably start roughly around 8:30. I'll probably be there a little earlier than 8 o'clock if you guys want to come down.
Absolutely.
Not a problem at all. We'll talk before that. There's plenty of time before that. But let's just talk about one other thing before we give cemeteries a rest till June 7th. If you go explore a cemetery, and they are open legally dawn to dusk, except up in Maine, and except if the times are posted. So please double check your time so you're not interfering with anything. And if you're just going to walk around to get exercise and enjoy reading the stones and looking at the artwork on the stones, great. If you see a funeral, come back and go back another day. That cemetery will be there tomorrow. It's not going anywhere.
Absolutely.
But if you bring a bottle of water in with you and some snacks, please don't leave the wrappers and your bottle of water left behind. There are trash containers. If there isn't, please just put them back in your car and throw them out when you get home. Let's try to keep our cemeteries, graveyards beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Melissa, let's talk a little bit about you. I know we had you on the show once a while back. So, what are your you have great talents. You were with us. Now you're joining up with the Essex County UFO and all this other stuff. You were recently with us at one of my other favorite locations, weren't you? Oh, the Sandown Meeting House.
I just didn't expect. I guess I'm still in awe of the things that I'm capturing on film. I'm just not in the most unexpected places.
So what happened? Let's talk about Sandown a little bit, because that's another place we'll be going back and doing major fundraising for. But let's not give it all away. Let's just talk about what happened with you that day, pretty much. So.
Which one? The very first time?
No, the one we were 2 weeks ago? Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Bill. So I honestly wasn't expecting much, and as soon as you walk in there, I could just feel the dead are everywhere. I don't know if there's a portal there, but you can feel the energy of the parishioners, and you can feel big misogynistic energy of the priest as well that did not like you near his altar.
No, I was almost thrown out of that window one night.
I'm telling you, he put his hand right up and like yelled at me to stop me from going in there.
Mm.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to respect that because I'm not trying to get hurt or or have anything follow me home because I didn't respect it. So we just went around and there were noises and knocks everywhere, just all day, even before you got there. And this place has no electricity, by the way.
Correct.
So for our listeners that are listening, there's no electricity, no nothing in this place. And if you just sit in the quiet, you can hear the shuffling around and the movement of things. And it was pretty neat.
Right. And I'm not a fan of taking pictures through windows, but in this in this building, we're taking some pictures. I got them on my phone. Bob's gotten them in years past. The same thing you and I got. And
Yeah.
it wasn't the window matrixing. We checked that. That wasn't like the
Yeah.
flash off the window, because that's what some people are going to say right away. No.
Oh, of course they will. And it was dark. It was dark in the building too. And the picture I took, I didn't use any flash or anything. It was just on regular camera, and these bright lights are there, red, green, and blue.
Right. So it was quite an interesting night. I mean,
it was pretty neat.
The
Same
slave.
thing with the depot. What I got at the depot, I mean that woman was as clear as day. Her entire upper half of her body to the details on her face.
Oh, that's right. Hair. That's right. You were with us at the depot last year too, right?
Yeah. I couldn't. It's the first time, and I wasn't expecting to catch anything there. And that woman was I mean, if I didn't know any better, I would have thought she was someone standing outside, obviously dressed in different time clothing, but that's how clear she was.
Right. Yeah, we've gotten apparitions on the landing of that train station before. So, I mean, it's quite that area of Sandown. I mean, that's why I called it and have coined this phrase, the Sandown Triangle, because there's just so much activity in that area. Between the private homes that we've investigated, public places we've been at, and stuff that's reported to me constantly by people who listen to this show, the Paranormal Zone, or listens to my other show that I'm going to have you on. I got two other shows. One called the Paranormal News Hour and the other show called the Essex County Ghost Project. They're both TV shows, one in Havel and one in Lawrence. I mean, I've had people reach out to me every time I talk about that area of the Sandown Triangle. More and more stuff.
There's a lot to the whole triangle situation. There really is. I've gotten some, I guess, information, if you will, from my guides about triangles and the whole situation. It's pretty mind-blowing.
Oh, no, it really is. I mean, when you look at things and you analyze these triangles, and that's one thing I love doing, is analyzing things, reading books, old town history books that talk about odd things that are buried in them. You know, it might only be one or two sentences, but when you put it to the big picture, you go, wow. You know, I know you're up in southern New Hampshire. We don't give out locations of anybody unless you want to.
Right.
But we'll just say southern New Hampshire. There is a great story out of Haverhill. Let's talk about how history meets interesting subjects. Okay? Now, there's a story out of Haverhill that took place March 1698-97, not too far from where Hilldale Cemetery is today, probably about a mile up the road. It was on Eudora Street. Hannah Dustin's family was attacked. She was taken captive. Her baby's head was smashed by the native tribe that attacked Haverhill, and she was taken up to Boscawen Island, which is up in Concord. Okay,
Right.
it's where that big monument is of Hannah Dustin. Now, she went up through Atkinson Meadows. I'm still working on where Atkinson Meadows it was. Okay, and then they camped out at a lake in Derry, and I'm trying to think of the Silver Lake. Is that in Derry?
Silver Lake.
Yeah.
Yeah, Silver Lake.
Okay, so I'm looking up the history of Silver Lake one day, and I hadn't finished, and I was reading about it in the town of New Hampshire, in the state of New Hampshire's history book, and in one of the couple of different town histories, right? And I said, oh, wait a minute, my favorite show's coming on. So I put the book down to watch my favorite show, which is Chronicle. Okay?
It's a good show. I love Chronicle.
Yeah, and my favorite part of Chronicle, especially Chronicle New Hampshire, was Fritz Minot Weatherby, who's a descendant of Hannah Dustin. Okay? He's a descendant of a lot of people. He's a part of the original Kelly family of West Newbury. Okay?
Who's the descendant again? I'm sorry.
Fritz Weatherby. Fritz is New Hampshire.
No. Oh, really?
Yeah. So
I did not know that.
He did this story about, and I'm going to mess this name up terribly because I still do it today. Tessento or Tesseni. Okay? Have you ever heard this story before?
I have not.
It's not Silver Lake, it's Beaver Lake. I think it's Beaver Lake. Yeah, Beaver Lake.
Yeah.
Yeah, not. Yeah, no.
Sorry.
Beaver Lake. I knew I had the wrong lake when I said it. I'm like, wrong lake. So
I lived in Derry too for some time. I should have known that.
Right. So out near Beaver Lake, supposedly this fairy Tessenti saved Hannah that night. Now, that is so much into the Manchester Derry folklore and its regular history that there is a pet store in Manchester that I've been to that has exotics like birds and stuff.
Yes.
Okay. Near that pet store, there is actually a road called Tessenti Road or Tessenti Avenue or...
Oh, Tomedo. You're talking about Tomedo.
Tomedo. Yeah, is that how you pronounce it? Okay.
Yes. I was trying to figure it out.
I thought it was called Tessenti. It's Tomedo. Okay.
Tomedo. Yeah.
Right. So Tomedo goes with the story of Hannah Dustin, a very historical figure during, King William's War.
That'll bring you right over to Beaver Lake Tomedo Road does.
Right. And you know where the road is I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know exactly where it is.
So when you talk about history and how history and the paranormal and things that go bump in the night, there's a prime example of it. And where is that located? In the Salem-Windham-Derry Triangle.
It sure is. It's still part of it.
Which I'm in the process of writing a book on. It'll be a little bit, but there's going to be a book. It's all part of what Lauren Coleman would have called the Ossipee Triangle. But when you have these type of triangles, you want to be able to investigate them and keep things logical. When you have a triangle that goes from Salem, New Hampshire to Jackson, back to Somersworth, New Hampshire, back to Salem, New Hampshire, that's impossible to keep things accurate. Because that's like 3/4 of the state of New Hampshire when you're done.
Yeah.
So that's why I started coining one area.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. It makes more sense to have them smaller because then it's easier to pinpoint things, figure things out. And when you start figuring things out, and I've said this on the show before, now, so the original triangle was the Ossipee Triangle, right? Then you have the Bridgewater Triangle. They have a lot of the similarities in them. Yeah, okay, Ossipee has mountains, but, plenty of mountains in it. But you know, all these triangles have water, train tracks, some volcanic something or other, and a lot of war, especially early wars, the French Indian War era, and pre that when natives were attacking each other. So there's a lot of local,
Right.
and the biggest thing they have in common is Air Force bases, military bases. Look at the Salem Wyndham Dairy. Look at the Ossipee Triangle, Salem to Jackson, out to the seacoast, and then back to Salem. Well, that's going to cover Navy and air. And there was another air installation in Manchester, which was now called the Manchester Airport. That was actually, I found out from one of Essex County team members, that was actually a Air Force base, or the Army used it for air stuff. And of course, you got Pease down here in Rockingham County. So it's quite interesting what you have when you start putting things together. That's why it's easier to condense the areas, like I have with all the research that's been done in these areas.
Right.
So it makes it real interesting. Now, when you go out and about in these areas, in fact, didn't you one night send a picture of a very interesting craft you guys saw over Hampton to us?
That was over Seabrook.
Over where?
Right over by Seabrook.
Oh, Seabrook, okay.
Yes.
So you guys...
Right over, it was right over almost like Salisbury, right next to Seabrook.
Oh.
That
Oh, so like if you got off 286 and banged the left to go to Hampton, you're in Salisbury, Seabrook, and you're going over the bridge, so you're before the bridge.
It was like we were in Hampton, so we came through the back way because my son wanted pizza.
Right.
And it was like a big M in the sky, and they started to move a little bit, but they all moved in unison, and then they just stayed there. They just hovered. But that's when all that, the drone thing was going on. I don't believe that was UFO. I believe it was 100% our government. They wouldn't allow anything even that close to a nuclear plant and not have it shot down if it wasn't our government.
Right. Well, I will tell you this. One night I was driving up to the BBC in Portsmouth. I call it the BBC. It's Bob's Broiled Chicken.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm dating myself because I thought you were talking about the club in Nashua.
No. So we're going to Portsmouth, and it's early. So I decided to take the back roads to Portsmouth. Right along our beautiful coast, the rockiest coast in the world, New England. Now, when you're driving up the coast, you know where the marshes are? And the ocean's on one side, the marshes, there's a road. Route 1 goes right through it.
Yes, it does.
Okay. If I had a sunroof, I could have stood up and probably touched the bottom of what I believe was a UFO. This thing came flying over the car from the ocean, went into the tree line, and dropped straight down. No explosion.
Huh.
Some people in the car thought it was a drone. If this was a drone, it was a pretty big drone, because I saw nothing but red and blue lights all over the bottom of this humongous thing. Okay? Right. I thought it might be a UFO. So I made a couple phone calls to some friends in the area, and the official report said, the way it was explained to me was, the official report says it's a drone. Okay. So what was the unofficial report? Well, there's no such thing as an unofficial report. Anytime you call up an agency and they say the official report is, I have to chuckle.
Absolutely
I
true.
try to have to hold myself back so I don't disrespect people because you and I both know there's no such thing as an unofficial report. You're not going to get an unofficial report.
Exactly.
You're going to get the official report. Oh, that was a drone. Yeah, okay, that was a drone. That was a darn big drone. That was a real big drone. Because if that thing had crashed behind those trees, I wouldn't be here today with how big that crash. That would have been like a fuel plane leaving Pease Air Force Base and crashing in that area.
Right.
The whole neighborhood would be gone.
Yeah, it'd be up in flames.
Yeah, my car would be burnt. That we wouldn't even be able to get out of there alive, even if I gassed it down the road, because that would have taken out that whole area for miles apart.
Wow.
So I laughed, obviously. So Melissa, now back to you. What are some of the abilities you actually have? I know I've worked with you a couple times.
I'm learning more and more every day. So the abilities I have, I get visions. I do get a lot of visions. That has been a newer thing for me. I can touch objects. Okay, for example, yesterday we were in Shooter's Outpost up in Hooksett, and I touched an old weapon, and I instantly knew that it was from World War II, and I saw a little battle scene, if you will. So I'm having a lot of fun with that right now. It takes a lot of practice. I do a lot of meditating and meditate all night long if I can, hopefully, without falling asleep. What else can I do? Like touch things. I mean, I'll see things, I feel things, I hear things. It all depends on how whatever it is trying to communicate is present itself to me.
That is interesting. So you could pretty much touch a ring and see who might have owned it.
Possibly. If it's this is how I feel. If it's meant for me to know, I'm gonna know it.
Interesting. So did you end up purchasing that World War II?
Oh no, I didn't purchase the World War II, but it was just so neat because of course the first thing I did was like, okay, now I need to Google this. I need to validate my vision because I'm out here thinking I'm crazy still, and I put in the type of gun and everything, and it came right up as it was a British. It was a British weapon, military issued weapon from World War II.
Those are hard to come by. Wow, that guy's
it was
lucky.
Really, really cool looking.
Oh, I bet it was. British always had, for the time, their guns were always pretty much, up until World War II, the end, they were pretty far superior.
A lot of brass, a lot of metal. But very, very, very cool. And that was just from testing it. And the latest, I've been seeing a lot more lately, and probably just because I'm more in tune and at the right vibration with the universe for me to receive this information.
Well, that's also important too. If you're going to receive it, you got to be in tune to what's going on out there.
Exactly. If I told you half the stuff my guides tell me, people would probably be like, okay, lock her up. There's no way. But the truth is, it's all possible. Just about anything you can imagine.
Oh no. Anything in life is possible.
Mm-hmm.
Anything in life is possible. Remember
I guess I'm still in awe of the things that have been validated, and I'm still in awe that I'm able to do this as well. I don't know if that will ever go away. It's like almost, but there's days that it's very heavy as well. And like, I see things that aren't very nice, things that will, leave an imprint on your brain and keep you up at night, those type of things.
Well, see, that's what makes everybody unique in the paranormal. I mean,
Absolutely.
and the more you do this, the stronger you'll become, the better you'll become at it. And hopefully, after a while, you can kind of. That's the problem I have. Some nights I can't shut down my brain.
Right.
Especially.
And that's my issue too. That's why I put my headphones on and I do meditation all night.
Mm-hmm. And then my brain shuts down after a while. But between channeling and that I'm capable of doing, because I'm not a psychic. I mean, I might sense something, but I never consider myself anything of a psychic.
You can feel the energy.
Yeah. But I can channel, and there are times after cases I'll wake up reliving the case that night, but not reliving it as it was. So, what's the best way to explain this? So we go into a house, okay, and we find out it's got paranormal activity, okay?
Sure.
And if you go in the right old houses, sometimes you're going to pick up a lot of death, okay? There's a house we did down in Sandown. We picked up a bunch of babies' deaths. Now, a lot had to do with it was a hotel at one time, and the innkeeper had an attraction to his house servants / what we call house servants in New England, but reality they were slaves. Nobody wants to talk about slaves in New England. And they would actually get rid of the babies by dumping them down the wells.
That's absolutely horrendous.
So when we go into a house, if you go into a basement and catch up an old well, that's just something be prepared for.
Right.
It's not every well, it's not every house, but I've been to enough cases in my life to say a lot of these homes have that energy. So I'll finish the case, I'll go home, go to bed, fall asleep eventually. I'll wake up like a nightmare of what happened to the baby.
Oh.
So, or what happened on the property. If there was a Native American fight that took place, we did a few of those.
Sure. I didn't have plenty of Native Americans.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah. I mean, we did a house years and years and years and years ago up near Tilton, New Hampshire. Okay. It was a UFO investigation and a paranormal investigation. And one of my team members tasted blood. That's one of her abilities, is to taste blood.
Okay.
And taste things sometimes. So we did a little more research, and I asked the lady, did you talk to the local historical society? Yep. Well, the road we were on was Tilton Road. Now, there's a reason why it's called Tilton Road in another town. Do you know why it's called that?
I don't.
Because that's the old road to Tilton. So if you have a road in your town that you live in that's a town next door to it,
right,
that means that's the road to the outgoing your town.
Okay.
And on the other side of that road, like where I worked in Exeter for years, I worked at Hampton Road in Exeter, okay? That went towards the downtown. When you got up over the hill, now you're in Hampton Falls. Once you hit Hampton Falls, they called that Exeter Road, because that was the road to Exeter.
Right.
I mean, the road to Exeter, if you're coming from the main road. Take Exeter Road to Exeter, and if you're coming the other way, it's Hampton Falls Road, because that's the road to Hampton Falls. So, long story short, being Tilton Road, that was probably an old Native American path. So she went to the local historical society and asked the question, was Tilton Road around, or was that an old Native American path? Do you have any history on Tilton Road? The volunteer at the historical society, thank God I wasn't there, turns around and says, yeah, no Native Americans walked on this road. My response to the client was I started chuckling.
Yeah, seriously, how can you say that?
How can you say something as ridiculous as that? I mean, some of the stuff we run into it's mind-boggling. Not just the paranormal, but some of the human, as you'll get to see.
Do you think it's just because they don't want things told the correct way, or they're too lazy to do their job?
Right. Or they just didn't want to look.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just a ridiculous statement to make.
Yes, it is.
I'm a historian. If someone ever asked me, do you think Native Americans walked over this piece of property we're standing on? My answer is they probably did, because they walked everywhere they went.
They sure did.
No guarantees. I wouldn't put a historical marker saying that, because we have no real proof, but they probably walked on 99% of the land we have developed today, if you want my honest opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's from historical research after research after research. So that's a very interesting talent, we'll call it. I don't like calling, because it is a talent, you know.
I've tried it. I'm not that good at it, so it's definitely not my calling or for me.
Right. So, well, you do have abilities to sense, pick things up like you did at the Sandown Meeting House. Be interesting to see what happens when we go back to Hilldale Cemetery on June 7th.
I'm very excited for that. Me too. I can't wait for that one.
Yeah. And if anybody wants more information on Hilldale Cemetery, you can reach me on my personal private cell phone at 978-376-2807 or the Paranormal Zone Facebook page. Or the Paranormal Zone the Paranormal Zone website. So not website, email. Email. You can email the Paranormal Zone and get that information to us if you're interested in coming for the June 7th event. And we'll have many more events this year. And Melissa, you'll be invited to all of them. And I want to thank you for joining up with us.
Thanks for
you and your family. It is great to have some new blood in Essex County, and of course with the UFO in New Hampshire too. So we're looking forward to a busy year. What'd you say? Can you repeat that, please?
I said it's something for us to do as a family too.
Yep. And that's very important.
We're all interested in.
Yeah. So that is very good and very important. So, you know what, though, Melissa? We're going to have you back on one day as another co-host. You're getting real good at this.
Thank you.
But we've come to the end of another great show. Don't hang up. I'm going to yet. But we've come to another end of a great show. So I want to thank Melissa. Thank you, Melissa.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. We'll have you back on. I want to thank everybody who's listened in over the great big lake called the Atlantic Ocean in Europe, in Russia, in Sweden, France, Germany, Alaska, wherever you're tuning in from, Saudi Arabia, the United States and Pennsylvania. We know we're out there. We know we're in Wisconsin, New York, Atlanta. We're all over the map. Florida. We're getting messages from all over the United States. So Send us a message just saying hi so we know where you're listening in from. I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight to tonight's Paranormal Zone, and we'll see you next week. I'm heading back to the crypt. This is the Crypt Keeper signing off. Good night, everybody.